Recovery involves repetition and action. These qualities lead to serenity, acceptance, and joy. This introduction serves as a reminder, embedding and reprogramming well-established patterns. Please reread this section. It will only deepen your understanding and process. Otherwise, skip the introduction. I contemplated a title for this book for some time. How could I, with clear conscience and only a few cogent words, reach out to people suffering from codependency and share the great news I have that will help them to minimize the effect of their compulsion? Well, the first thing I did was assign myself to coming up with a list of words that expressed my thoughts and feelings regarding codependency. And not surprisingly, the word insanity appeared on the list several times. It was definitely no surprise. I consider insanity to be a very misunderstood term and concept in our society. We often associate it with someone who simply isn't normal, or someone who does crazy things. The gamut of insanity runs from people talking to themselves in public to violent serial killers. I would bet you can attest to how insanity can set up shop in a life that appears normal from the outside, when on the inside there is nothing but turmoil. Albert Einstein defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You know what I'm talking about here, yes? You smile and pretend that everything in your life is good, but when you're alone, you hurt. You don't understand why you hurt, so you cry or scream or just lash out with misdirected anger. Deep-seated unhappiness abounds. But understand, this too is insanity, as life for the codependent is rarely, if ever, sane. What causes the insanity? This may be the most important question this book has to ask you. But first, let us examine how codependence manifests itself and reveals its presence in obvious and conspicuous tones. For once we understand the complete nature of codependence, we will clearly grasp the insanity of it. There are essentially 5 main symptoms that researchers identify as being always present in the life of a codependent. The principal symptom, inability to conceive of one's own self-worth in an appropriate or positive light. This translates into low self-esteem, your own. And this, unfortunately, can either mean an inferiority complex or even feeling and expressing a greater diluted sense of superiority. Another highly recognized indicator of codependence is the failure to set up external and internal boundaries. These are boundaries that offer protection and definition of your existence. Among other things, the absence of these boundaries affects your control over your own personal levels of intimacy and emotion. This failure to identify the personal, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social elements of your being is a symptom of codependence that can negatively influence your perception of self and cause you to lead a life of falsehood and self-deception. Neglecting to realize your personal needs and allowing the needs of others to take precedence is another symptom of codependency. And certainly, that can lead to a life of insanity. This is not to say that dedicating your life as a personal servant or caregiver to someone of lesser station will define you as being a codependent. Love and charity are almost always exceptions to every rule. However, in the case of subservience or self-deprecation, such behavior threatens your very livelihood when it causes you to disregard even basic needs for survival. The 4 above described symptoms of codependence typically escapes the scrutiny of others. But the loss of self-control, which eventually presents itself, is a symptom that seldom remains invisible for long. Emotional outbursts and public displays of excessive, aberrant behavior are always noticed by others. No matter how subtle might seem the conduct and or speech of a codependent, in the physical, intellectual, emotional, and social aspects of one's being, the taking of extreme measures or expressing extreme behavior of any kind is a secret and extreme symptom of codependency that reveals itself to everyone you know eventually. Codependents are very talented at keeping secrets, but like the other negative byproducts of their condition, this too is a serious detriment that takes its toll over time. If you recognize these symptoms in your own life, your body is undoubtedly producing an excessive amount of stress hormones in response to such behavior and inner turmoil. Left unchecked and unmanaged, this situation can lead to serious health consequences. It can also cause or influence one to incur serious additions, such as smoking, excessive eating, and alcohol and drug abuse. It is estimated that stress alone accounts for as much as 90% of all doctors' visits. It might seem nice to keep physicians employed and continually earning great salary, but the terrible cost is to your physical health and state of mind. Is there any positive reason you can think of? Despite all these dire tidings, you can now take heart, because I do indeed have good news for you, and soon enough, things will begin to look up for you. So listen up and don't turn off or out. Let me share this very good news I have for you. It is news of hope, and it is very simple. You no longer have to settle for the insanity in your life. How to Stay Sane When Life Isn't, 10 Self-Care Tools for Renewing Your Mind, was written especially for you. Someone who needs to be awakened to realize this universal truth, that you too deserve to be validated, appreciated, and loved. To accentuate this comic truth, included at the end of this book are a number of wonderful stories by and about individuals who each experienced an epiphany of renewed strength and hope and freed themselves of the terrible restraints their prior lives had upon them. Please understand that accepting this realization is the first step in making a positive change in your life. Next, you will knowingly engage in activities that spawn the release of endorphins. These neat neurotransmitters, also referred to as mood enhancers, have been found to improve immunity, lower blood pressure, and reduce stress and the damage stress causes. How to Stay Sane When Life Isn't is a compilation of easy tips and simple devices that you can use and make part of your life's daily routine. In effect, this book can transform your life, and do so in many tremendously healthful, positive, and beneficial ways. My awakening. Painful contractions during the 5th month of my second pregnancy were more than enough for my doctor to order me to stay in bed and stay there focusing on nothing but lots and lots of bed rest. Therefore, while my body rested, my mind went into overdrive. One thing I immediately did was presume that my husband needed my immediate assistance in actualizing his new photography business. I quickly determined that this period of bed rest would be perfect for commencing duties as his marketing director. Within the next few months, the hours I spent working on the business doubled, and gradually so did my financial support. Suddenly, his business was flourishing, but our marriage started failing. Naturally, I began to rack my brain, trying to figure out how so much good had caused so much bad. And naturally, I also blamed myself. What was I doing wrong? The arrival of our new baby was nearing, and I was riddled with angst and self-doubt. At a time when happy images of the birth of my new baby boy should have occupied my thoughts, I was suffering with feelings of bewilderment, fear, regret, and resentment. Unfortunately, the vicious cycle of what's wrong with me and self-blame continued after our baby's uncomplicated arrival. My every effort to receive the love and appreciation I longed for was met only with disdain and unexplained resistance. Instead of eliciting care and affection, as well as needed support, even with menial tasks like housework, my husband's resistance continued. And of course, slowly fueled resentment, thus creating more emotional distance and dependency. In my fog of codependence, I pondered, what more could I do considering all that I've already done? Sullen, depressed, and bewildered, my mind and spirit felt shattered. I suggested therapy to my husband, and he acquiesced. So we attempted to work through our various relationship problems with this regimen. And once we began the therapy, only then could we really learn how much we hadn't seen or known previously. Soulmates in our misery, we discovered ourselves as soulmates in the quagmire of our family of origin, bonded in the trauma of our past. Approaching recovery. The journey of codependence is an insidious disease that appears normal and wonderful to the outside world. Inside, there is self-abandonment and neglect. There's also not knowing normal behavior nor appropriate boundaries and lacking a sense of simple propriety. Some codependents are hyper-responsible and overly reliable. Codependents believe that they can control people, places, and things. This is an illusion and a part of the survival process, which may have begun working for them as a child. The ideal scenario is one where people help one another to get through life's problems and difficult times. Whether it is with family, friends, or co-workers, support should always involve a balance of effort. The codependent unknowingly creates an imbalance in the relationship by masking his or her own needs to meet those of others. "I can help" is a common phrase proclaimed by the codependent. The desire to help is a way to validate one's existence. This can result in becoming an obsession, even to the point that life seems futile and meaningless without someone to save. We are hardwired to believe that our mission is to save half the people we know while taking care of the other half. Somehow, this misleadingly creates the illusion of being whole and worthwhile. It is a vain attempt to escape other feelings, particularly that annoying little one called pain. The essence of this pain lies in character defects, such as envy, resentment, arrogance, judgmentalness, and cynicism, to name a few. Lack of self-worth and low self-esteem are two well-hidden defects which become glaring after some time on this journey. The list of defects can be rather long. Society doesn't really teach us their detriments nor the destruction such defects can cause. They are, like many other forms of behavior and human characteristics, easily learned and adapted to, while all the time appearing far too normal. Later, when we unconsciously sign up for the thorough self-examination we need, we horrifically learn we can no longer consciously exist with this perspective. Truth and a desire for deeper meaning becomes our new and most exigent modus operandi. But what the heck, c'est la vie. As the saying goes, that's life. The imbalance of support created by codependence is often tied to addiction. Not their own, but of someone close to them. Maybe a parent or sibling was an alcoholic, or maybe they married someone who is addicted, or has a friend who has a serious addiction problem. In fact, Merriam-Webster's online dictionary defines codependence or codependency as a psychological condition or a relationship in which a person is controlled or manipulated by another who is afflicted with a pathological condition, such as an addiction to alcohol or heroin, dependence on the needs of or control by another. Mental Health America, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting mental well-being in the U.S., describes codependency as an emotional and behavioral condition that affects an individual's ability to have a healthy, mutually satisfying relationship. It is also known as a relationship addiction because people with codependency often form or maintain relationships that are one-sided, emotionally destructive, and/or abusive. We are all different in how we react and behave to situations. Maybe you're not sure if you are codependent. Maybe the signs are not so clear. Consider the following red flags established by WebMD. You become obsessed with fixing and rescuing needy people. You are easily absorbed in the pain and problems of others. You are trying to control someone, or someone is trying to control you. You do more than your share all the time. You are always seeking approval and recognition. You would do anything to hold on to a relationship. You fear being abandoned or outcast. Society simply doesn't teach us the detriments of these traits. These defects are learned and can over a whole lifetime appear normal. However, when we embark on a journey of spiritual renewal, we can no longer live from this perspective. A desire for honesty and discovering the purpose for our lives does indeed become our new primary focus and most important activity, for it is here that we can actually pursue a path of self-renewal.